we about to have one of them conversations right here. Shout out to Candace Owens, who was recently featured on Jubilee in an episode titled One Conservative versus 20 Feminists. Now, I have watched relatively this amount of content right here, and then I also saw some viral clips, but there was one conversation in particular, because all of the viral clips, Candace is wiping the floor with everybody, but there was one viral clip in specific where the public sentiment seems to be different dependent upon which side of the fence that you are on. And that conversation is with this lovely lady right here, who is a content creator up on YouTube. We have talked about her specifically. She makes content for like the begrudging lady, like the downtrodden woman of society that inevitably kind of sort of hates men, but haven't been able to put their hate into words. And she puts things into words for them to be able to latch on to whatever pill that she's selling. Nevertheless, she went up with Candace Owens, and I don't know if Candace knew of who she was, but it did materialize into a very interesting conversation. Now, this lady goes by the name of Princella the Queenmaker. I have quipped that her new name is Princella the Studmaker because she's utilized her platform in the past to have relationships with women that follow her. By the way, that young lady went public about their relationship and described her as an evil, evil person. Whether or not it's true, probably not, because we know some of these women be lying all day. But nevertheless, she has a particular opinions and views regarding things, so I just want to hear the conversation. So without further ado.
So you say we live in a matriarchy.
Right.
Can you give me the definition of patriarchy?
Yes. Well, the patriarchy is the idea that the system, our system in America, is being run by men, and that women are having to exist under a system that immediately disadvantages them because men are behind it.
Yes.
And I disagree with that pointedly. I think actually we're living in a society where people are being very much influenced socially and politically by women.
Yes. Okay. I think she nailed that definition. And there's so many different examples where although the industry is male dominated, women will come in and mess it the goddamn up for the audience that the product is made for. The biggest example I can think of right now is gaming. What is happening to video games nowadays? It used to be a sacred space. Now it's the same woke ideals, often supported by women, charged with DEI equality, just infiltrated by this twisted culture, forcing narratives down your throat that the audience doesn't want to see.
Best part is, while Tasha's pounding that snake's nose, she's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties, I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it. Sorry.
And the sales demonstrate that, but they still don't give a F. And bomb video games for a second, but let's talk about movies. What are they doing to Marvel? Disney, wake up. Ironheart? Y'all took Iron Man and put a young black woman and called it Ironheart? Ruining your company with shit people don't even want to see. Shout out to Snow White. But let's keep it pushing.
Okay, so the denotative definition of patriarchy is father rule, and where positions of government are held majorly by men, where women are largely excluded. So 125 House of Representatives are female, and that's only about 25%.
Right.
And only about 28% make up Senate, and 3.3% of Congress up until this date have ever been women. So by denotative definition, we literally live in a patriarchy.
No, that is a surface level argument. You're just taking a look at the amount of men and the amount of women, and you're just establishing patriarchy. When it's not about the amount of people, but it's about the ideologies that have voting or vetoing power. How many of those representatives that are men are male feminists? And a lot of them are not even male feminists because they actually believe that shit, but they wanted to be on the right side of history.
Yes. So I disagree with that. So I think what this gets to, which is actually an important part of the conversation, is that people always think that where there is disparity, there's somehow inequality. And I actually reject that entirely. I think it's just a difference in what we're interested in.
Yes.
I think we're biologically wired. We're interested in different careers. And just because if we looked in the fashion industry and said, oh, well, it's being dominated by women, it wouldn't mean that, okay, well, that means that the fashion industry is a matriarchy and men have no sense. It just means have no ability to communicate how they feel in the fashion industry. I literally think that those numbers show that we're just biologically different. So I actually think politically, women have shown that they have a lot more power than men have. And I'm talking about just in terms of political movements. The most recent I can think of is the Me Too movement, right?
Yeah.
If a bunch of women get together and complain about a man and refer to the patriarchy and scream,
Yep.
generally speaking, and let me know if you agree, the media will celebrate that.
Yep.
If a bunch of men got together and were shrieking and speaking about women, generally speaking, the media would call them all white supremacists and say that we had a misogyny problem and that things were really wrong in society. Women are allowed to be more vocal in general about problems than men are.
She absolutely nailed it. And there's actually a tangible example of this. I was just looking on Instagram randomly this morning. There was a story of a young man that won some title in MMA. And at the end of it, the ring car girl went to stand next to him and he like kind of grabbed her in this awkward kind of way to take a photo. You could tell that the guy's kind of awkward. He didn't mean anything by it. But because of that, it went viral right after and he got accusations of assault and they threatened to ruin his damn career over it. All right. Flash forward to his next fight. He wins yet again. Ring car girl tries to get a photo with him and he is running around the ring trying to get away from her. When the woman complained about that, it was assault. When the man is complaining or running around the ring, they laugh at him. But there were other losers that'll utilize some victimhood status, such as protect black women, show up claiming that they got hit in the face with a brick in order to receive GoFundMe money, allegedly. How is it patriarchy when you can push a victimhood narrative and entire industries change? I mean, shit, we've had a world leader, Barack Obama, be publicly shamed by his wife, Michelle Obama, saying, quote, "I would not want another son because he'd be like Barack." This is the leader of the free damn world, yet he is forced to stay silent because he knows that if he was to say anything, his reception publicly would be in the toilet. What patriarchal society today has world leaders where their wives disrespect them publicly?
Let me speak to that. When we're talking about government and media, these are two different things. So under the denotative definition of a patriarchy, by the percentages that are occupied in the government, which is majority male, defines us as a patriarchy. Now, what it comes to for capitalism, for marketing purposes and control, for capital and revenue, that is a totally different conversation. But who's making the laws? I don't think that women are the ones voting to have their reproductive rights taken away, where you have incest and all of these things excluded to force women to be able to have. I don't think women in government would largely vote against their own interests. Because
you're just assuming that it is all women's interest to not save babies from untimely demises. You're just assuming that women also think that women have as much control of conception prior to, with over 30 forms of birth control, and they want to hold those that share their same genders accountable. You're just assuming that religion is not playing a part in some women's decisions. You just think, well, it's against women having their body, their choice. Therefore, no woman would want that unless they're too stupid, too dumb, or brainwashed into thinking that way. Candace, please wipe the floor with her.
Majority male, patriarchy.
Okay, I think, love that point. Are women allowed to vote?
Oh, of course they are.
Who's voting that patriarchy, and then out of curiosity?
No, I totally agree. And you want to know why?
Why?
Because there are so many women who think like you. You submit to the idea of men ruling everything. And your ideology is spread across a lot of women who also falsely believe to vote against their own interests just to complain about it in the end. You know, earlier you said that, women would be much more happier working at home, but Don't you agree that it's human
She
nature?
actually didn't say that. She said women, by and large, in general, will be more happy pursuing families than being strong and independent in the workplace. That was her argument, but they keep on misconstruing it to fit their bias.
To want things that you don't have. So during the 1950s, which is something that you constantly bring up, you know, it wasn't until 1994 that it was legally illegal to beat your wife. And so what we're dealing with is people wanting something, and then when they get it, they're not happy with it, and then they have to revoke that idea for something else. And so what you're saying is that women vote for these things because they have the same mentality as you.
Okay. So you're acknowledging that women have the freedom to vote.
So
Yes.
the answer
And you're
is yes.
saying that women are still existing mentally, even with the freedom to vote.
Correct.
They are voting men in because we are still victims of.
No, I don't believe in victimhood. I believe in lack of education and lack of knowledge, because one of the things that you also
Do
say.
you think that it could just be that more men are running for positions of office?
No, not necessarily. Because remember, the United States, the average reading comprehension of people in the United States is 6th grade. So we're not dealing with educated people. Lack of education is the cause for what we see in the world.
So first you're saying that women who think like Candace are essentially just lemmings, and now you're admitting in front of Candace that you think most of them are choosing that because they're just simply educated. By that, are you also now saying that Candace is not educated, which she is? So you can't think of any other reasons why women would make those decisions and vote for these things outside of them not being educated enough to understand whatever bullshit you selling.
And if we educate the women better, because a nation can rise no higher than its woman. And if she reading and comprehending at a 6th grade level and popping out a lot of kids, you know, because the brokest people in the world pop out the most kids. So if we have those people voting, of course they're going to vote against their interests, because they're voting for some utopian society that will never exist.
Okay, so that's why you think Kamala lost.
What?
This ain't even about Kamala.
Because you're talking about women. No, but we had an opportunity.
Candace, why'd you say that? Why'd you say that? All right, that's what you call moving the goalpost, Candace. I want to listen to more what she has to say. But maybe she said it because she's familiar with this woman's content and knows that for her, a utopia would be women leadership.
Opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
We had a male running and we had a female running. And we actually showed that Trump increased the amount of women who voted for him, right? So I'm asking you, do you believe that the reason that happened was because women became less educated during that time?
They've always been less educated. Did you know?
Yeah, but so are men. Like, what is the argument? So women are less educated, therefore they just choose without understanding. Though men are on the same 6th grade, if not 5th grade reading level as well.
That UNESCO says that that 2/3 of the 7.7 million illiterate adults is women, illiterate, and we have 6th grade educated people voting. And guess who? Guess the dominant population is white women. And so guess what? Now you have to add a race element into that, which you already know exists, because we as black folks, we ain't the dominant people voting people in. Okay, so now when we have to go into white supremacy and feminism, now you have to look at the mind of the people who actually have economic success and what they're voting for, because classism actually matters as well. So I'm sorry, but a lot of people vote based on their feelings and not based on policy.
So the play here from a content perspective is to say that these women are not victims, they're just not educated. But come to me as your formal educated stud maker and listen to my form of education so we can create a new utopia of women and women colonies, dating women and just being independent queens governed by me, the queen maker. It's some really sadistic shit when you think about the natural order of men as well as women. It is really a smooth play that she's doing over there. I will say that, right? Like, yeah, to accomplish her goals. Now, I also want to say, before I end this video, that the highest rates of domestic violence is lesbian women-on-women relationships. I just want to say that real quick for anyone that's listening that absolutely hates everything that I'm talking about right now and is an avid fan of the young man. But nevertheless, I thoroughly enjoyed the content here today, and I'm happy that I had the opportunity to go over it with you. All right. As the most difficult conversation within Candace's conversations, I thought I'd bring my perspective into it. I think at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves this, is that where is all of this leading us? When men are being silenced for being masculine, when women are praised for chaos and called strong for abandoning structure, and when victimhood becomes the currency that they utilize to push it, you're not building a better society. You are slowly burning down the one that gave you the freedom to complain in the first place. That has been your content today. I have been your host, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews. Write me some comments down below, and I will see you guys soon. Until next time, YouTube. Peace.
You is ratchet as they come, rainbow weaves and batwing lashes, weighing more than a man. What time is your football practice? I bet you can hit that A gift like a mug. How you big back it? Said a man must buy you gifts. Where here goes a Fitbit tracker? Are you mad? Cause you got 3 kids by 4 different dads. You pick cookies, then you bash. Oh man, when you get sad.